And we are live. Want to make sure everyone can hear me really well. Welcome to Dating While Black Town Hall. I'm Jasmine Diaz, founder of Relation and your moderator for today's discussion. Before we jump in, I just want to make sure that you guys can hear us clear. We've got a panel of awesome experts lined up for today. And I just want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to listen and hear what we have to say. So if you could just really quickly in the comments, just let us know if you're having any problems with hearing us. Panel, can you hear me well? Just give me a thumbs up. All right. I want to thank you guys for being here. This is an open space for dialogue. So don't be afraid to join the conversation. All questions are welcomed. As the nation grapples with racism, police brutality, and COVID-19, today we explore how systematic racism has affected the Black community, our experience while dating, and the unique challenges of being a Black expert in a growing industry. So before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and the countless others who have lost their lives at the hands of the police. We are thinking of you. We are thinking of your families. This is something that is really close to our hearts. We've been going through it, so to speak. So we have an amazing list of experts, or a group of experts here today. Each have over 10 years of experience in dating and relationships, with varied experience from matchmaking to journalism. So first up, I want to, introduce you to one of our panelists, and I'm going to be toggling back and forth, just so you guys know. So today we have, where'd she go? There you go, girl. Yes, Dr. Aisha Adams Roberts. She's a matchmaker, dating coach, relationship expert, a successful, woman doing great things. She's been featured in GSN's the hit matchmaking show, It Takes a Church. She's an expert writer for Black and Married with Kids and male dating app. Welcome, Dr. Aisha.
Hello, Jasmine. I'm so excited to be here.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
We are excited to have you as well.
Thank you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
you. All right. Perfect. All right. So next up, we have an awesome expert, Paul. It's like surprise. Not what you were expecting.
No. I was in comments. Right. Yeah.
Paul C. Brunson is a matchmaker, serial entrepreneur, speaker, and author whose specialty is to teach others how to live authentically. He's currently co-host of Celebs Go Dating on E4. Welcome, Paul.
Ladies.
Yes.
And everybody watching.
I'm so excited to have you here. Next up is Dr. Ish Major, known as America's top psychiatrist, is a co-host of WE TV's Marriage Boot Camp series. He's a resident expert on the Tamara Hall Show, the Today Show, has appeared on Steve. We thank you for being here, Dr. Ish.
Hey guys, how y'all doing today?
Good. What's up,
Can you hear us? I can't hear you. Can you hear me? I think we can't hear you, Dr. Ish.
Oh, hold please.
Oh, no.
I can hear him.
Yeah, I can hear him.
Yeah. We can hear you now.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. So next up on our list of really great panelists, and I'm just scrolling so I can find your face, Fayuna Solomon is the founder of The Dating Truth, a veteran in the dating industry with over 10 years of experience helping daters. The Dating Truth is a force in dating, having reached over 2 million readers worldwide. Thank you, Fayuna.
Hey, Jasmine. Hi, everybody.
Hello. So super happy to be here. And, this is my sis right now, Dominique Clark. She is a multi-talented relationship expert, author, media personality. She has years of experience empowering singles. She's been featured at Essence, Huffington Post, the CW. Thank you, Dominique, for being here.
Thank you for having me. Hi, guys.
Yes,
Hey,
yes,
Paul.
yes. And I'm going to drop off just a second so you won't be able to see me. Well, maybe you may. But Joseph, give me 1 second. Let's see if we can get him up. I'm going to remove.
I guess Joseph needs no introduction. He is the man.
Unmute.
We can't hear you, Joseph. I think you need to unmute yourself.
Can we hear me? Okay, can we hear me
There
now?
you are.
Hey, family. I see a lot of familiar faces here. What's going on, everybody?
Hey,
Hello.
How are you?
I think our facilitator,
She's gone.
she's gone. Yes.
I believe she will be back, however.
Yes.
Oh, no, he's done.
I think we're having a Teddy Riley moment.
Is that
You sure I'm having a Teddy? But one of the things I noticed is that, we can only have 6 people on the panel. So I'm just going to introduce Joseph, and I'm going to pop him on real quick just so everybody can tell. So Joseph Dixon is the founder of RBL app, the premier dating app for the African American community. RBL has been featured in Ebony, CBS Radio, Afrotech, and more. So, you saw him just a second ago, and you'll see.
Here he goes. There he is again.
Well, am I the one corrupting the whole system here?
You are a disruptor, sir.
Oh.
Listen, though.
Jasmine, come on back.
Yeah,
I think we're going to play.
Hard-hitting question.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, this is going to be a tricky one, guys. Managing everybody on this panel. So it's safe to say the last few weeks and months have been exhausting, right? From police brutality, the protests, COVID-19. As a people, we've been battling one issue after another. This is the first time many of us are dealing with grief, right? In the way that we've, been experiencing it as a people. I'm going to start with you, Paul, because I know you're in the UK. How have you been dealing with what's been going on in the States?
Yeah, I mean, it's been heavy. It's been hard. And I think one thing that we have to realize is that this is happening all over the world. In London in particular, it's a revolution that's happening all throughout the UK, all throughout Europe, right? Even it's interesting. Even my friends in Africa, West Africa in particular, are talking about what is happening now. And so this is a global event that's happening. And I think what's interesting about this vis-a-vis other events that's happened, in the past, is that this is one moment in history that we are all experiencing all around the world. And I think there's something powerful about that. The other part of it that I just want to throw in is that I've never seen so many either allies, like real allies, and fake allies ever, like in my life, which I think is the other events that's happened, in the past, is that this is one moment in history that we are all experiencing. Look at that! I'm going again. There's something powerful about that. The other part of it that I just want to.
We just want to echo how powerful that was.
That's right.
It's echoing, reverberating throughout the world.
I appreciate that.
Yes. How about you, Dr. Aisha? I know we have been working on this. We have had a discussion amongst each other about, it's our time to kind of talk about these issues. How have you been coping?
I had to make sure that I protected my energy and practice a lot of self-care. I remember watching the Philando Castile video when it went viral, and how that really, settled into my spirit to the extent that I couldn't function. So this time I was very selective about what I had to take in, because I knew that I still had a responsibility to serve my community and my clients. And they were in a space of, just not being able to function. And so I started to provide virtual self-care parties and creating spaces for, my clients to be able to express themselves. And I knew that if I were to go into the depth, the belly of what was happening, I wouldn't be able to serve them. So I really had to be careful about the conversations that I engaged in, and very intentional, right? So Jasmine and I had a lot of conversations in DMs. I made sure to not always put that out on, my personal pages. And I had to really find those people who I knew would be able to understand without having to do a lot of explaining. So I'm seeing how this has been impacting people personally and even in their relationships, the way that they're showing up in their relationships. So I'm really excited about this conversation because I'm also noticing that expert voices are needed, right, in these conversations that are happening online to help people understand what's going on. So I'm excited to be among such an elite group of professionals here right now, because I think we're about to really help some people.
Yes, I agree with that completely. And I'm just going to shift it over just a little bit to kind of make it easier for people to see us. So the Black Lives Matter, it was once thought of as a political movement, right? But we're starting to see more and more people are understanding it as a civil rights moment. You know what I mean? Or at least with that being said, I would say, the movement has radically changed or transformed the way in which we view people. Dr. Ish, and maybe you could speak to this. What impact do you think the movement has had on dating?
It's really been interesting to me to see some of the non-Black dating and relationship experts starting to try to insert their voices into this movement when it comes to understanding, what it means to date while Black. And so I know for the past 10 years, I've been having conversations with women across the diaspora. So the UK, Africa, the Caribbean, Canada, coast to coast in the US, about their specific challenges in dating. For example, colorism, being discriminated against because of the shade, of your skin. I just had a conversation with a client about that, how she's experiencing that. I've been seeing how this movement is impacting the conversations people are having on their first swipe on dating apps. And, the movement and protests are coming up, and people are evaluating whether or not they are attracted to the person, based upon where they fall and in their activism right now. So I have clients who are out in the streets in Minneapolis, right, who are a part of the protest, and then they go on an app on Bumble or something, and they're having a conversation with a guy, and he is clueless about what's going on, and they are completely turned off. So I'm seeing so many aspects of it where it's almost trendy for some people to use the hashtag Black Lives Matter, but they haven't been in the struggle, up until now. And it's becoming a point of contention, both within the dating world and even in our industry. I'm curious what other people think about that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dr. Ish Major, if you can kind of touch on it from kind of like your perspective.
I think the ball was hit to you, Dr. Ish.
Oh, from my perspective, yeah. Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. Yeah, I think it's hard for a lot of reasons that we can actually see, a lot of those external reasons, but it's actually difficult for a lot of reasons that we can't. Right? Dating is one of those things, and when you talk about relationships, you talk about love. It's one of those things that you don't attract what you want. You attract who you are, right? And so this is one of those times where we've got to be really, really in tune with where we are. Every one of us is at a different level when it comes to where are we in this process? Where are we with the movement? Where are we with the protests? Where are we with the riot? Like the first word you mentioned was grief, right? It's a shared trauma is a real thing, and we are all grieving collectively. But the thing that you've got to understand is that not one of us, either on this panel or in this world, is going to be at that same stage at the same time, right? Some of us are still in a state of denial. We're not ready to deal with it. Some of us are very, very angry, and you're seeing that. Some of us are in that stage where what can we do? Do we let other voices in who are not Black or not? Some of us are just exhausted and depressed. And then some of us are just, are just tired.
Yes, yes. And feel
So
free,
you gotta understand where you are up and down that spectrum, so you're always in tune with who it is you are going to be attracted to, because you're looking to match that thing up, but also who it is you're attracting, and understanding that, yeah, this is what's happening for now, but this is not what's going to be happening forever, right? And so the person you are today, you're not going to be that person next week, and you're not going to be that person next month, and you're certainly not going to be that person in 6 months. So you may not want to make any heavy, big, life-altering, life-changing partner type decisions right now. Where you are right now, especially if you're just meeting, just understand, hey, this is where I am, and I am truly a work in progress today. So let's just see where this goes. But I think the main thing is understanding where you are, so you can understand and be a little more accepting of where somebody else might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I was going to say, for any, question that is brought forward, feel free, guys, to just jump in if you have a thought or opinion. And also for those of you listening in, if you have questions or thoughts, opinions, please feel free to share. Anybody else want to answer or add to,
I was just going to say
the conversation
that,
before we move on? Go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to add on to that. With my clients, they're looking for alignment right now. They're looking for where you stand. What do you believe in? Where are you, like you mentioned, in this activism? What's important to you? But most importantly, what's important for you in terms of family? I think one of the most challenging things that I've had to experience right now as a Black person in my home is having the conversation with my children, because what we're doing right now, the activism we're doing right now, is for the next generation. And so where are you with that, And so I think that's been a challenge, just finding alignment with my clients. And that's been the most important thing for them right now. And having that conversation, right? Some people are now asking, like you said, at first swipe, the conversation is, where are you? You know what I mean? And so is it too soon? Is this something I should talk about right now, immediately? Or is it something that I should wait later to discuss and bring up as we are getting to know each other? And so I just think my clients right now are looking for alignment. They're looking for ways to have the conversation with someone that may be of interest, right now, and such a hard time, because we're all hurting. We're all experiencing pain. Where we are is a shared endeavor. And so they just want to make sure that whomever they're aligned with right now is in the fight with them, and they believe the same things that they do,
Yes, absolutely. So before we dig in deep into the discussion, I want to talk about some of the different experiences for men and women while dating. Joseph, do you think that men, or at least Black men, have an overall better dating experience?
So can you hear me?
Yes.
So from what I've seen is that it's a huge myth that just because there's so much quantity for men, because the dating scale is unequal, that it's so much easier for Black men. But truth be told, it's pretty much the same struggle, because just because you have quantity doesn't mean you have quality. I'm not saying every woman's not quality. I'm saying that you have to go through all the women kiss the frog to find the prince. It's the same thing on the men's side as well. So, it's a struggle on both sides. It's just the fact that, where do we meet? How do we meet? Where do we meet in forms of forming relationships? And that's one reason why I created RBL, because, there's a relationship focused Black singles out there didn't have the platform to actually meet. And that's what we're providing for African American singles that are interested in actually meeting someone for substantial connections, instead of going to this app there, and going through 100 swipes just to find that one person that's looking for a real connection.
Yes. I agree with that completely. As Black people, our day-to-day is often unlike our counterparts. It's not unusual to have someone cross the street when we walk by, or to be followed at a store, or to have someone kind of clutch their purse when we're close by. We have adapted our lives to, these microaggressions, right? But I want to talk about how this manifests digitally. And I'm wondering if I'm saying it right, digitally, and dating apps, and just dating in general. If we were to like essentially cut to the chase, Black singles are not having the same experiences. Fayuna, maybe you could speak to this. Why do you think that is?
Well, there's a lot of different reasons, and I think everybody touched a little bit on what is causing this disconnect. One thing that I will say, especially when you have apps focused just for us, there's a lot of research that Black men are often late adopters to technology. So not only are you missing the volume of people and options as in other groups of people, is that the likelihood of it being a match for you, like you said, Jasmine, going through your day to day is very different. Oftentimes, a Black man that you might be interested in would not be interested in that type of technology in the first place. So you have a lot of gaps there. The other thing is that with the way dating apps are designed, a lot of them use choosing race as monetization. So you don't even get to be selective about who you want to date if it is culturally or religiously aligned with you, unless you're willing to pay money. And so we have to remember that they're a business as well. They're not just interested in you meeting somebody. They're also interested in, if you want the experience tailored to you, you're going to have to pay for that experience. So when you have lack in volume, then when you have, these different monetization layers, it becomes a very complicated experience to date while Black, especially if you're trying to leverage technology for that.
Yes, yeah. Paul, I would love to get your perspective on this.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was raising my hand on this one. I was raising my hand. All right, so now look, I'm about to call some people out right now. Okay, so my sis, she just broke it down perfectly, like eloquently, with regard to how dating apps, every dating company that exists, right? It is a company. It exists for profit. But we have to look kind of behind that and realize too, there are no Black people at the helm of any of these dating companies. At Match, none of them. And then secondly, the PR company, the public relation companies that they're using are all white as well. And so we have to remember this, is that I think that one of the best weapons ever used against Black people was disinformation. Not information, not misinformation. I'm talking about disinformation. It goes all the way back. Like, y'all know, I'm Jamaica. I bleed Jamaica, right? I bleed Jamaica. The reason why they were able to dismantle Marcus Garvey and the Black Star Lines is because of spreading disinformation. In the dating community, I think the most damaging event that has ever happened to the history of dating happened in 2010. And that was when OkCupid decided to come out with this fraudulent, fake, fictitious, ridiculous survey that basically said, Black women, man, y'all can't get any dates. Y'all can't get any dates. Nobody loves you, right? I mean, if you really dissect the data, you'll see how just idiotic and stupid the survey was. But here's the problem. The problem is that they came out and they talked about how this is 2010, right? Black women, you are the least desirable women on the planet as a result of this little stupid survey that we've done on our app that no Black people are on anyway. And then what happened is that everyone, Time Magazine, Forbes Magazine, every legitimate publication, USA Today, NBC, CNN, everybody runs with it, to the point where this was 2010. To literally yesterday in London, in the UK, I had a radio station call me to say, Paul, we'd like to talk about how Black women have a hard time dating. And they pointed to this freaking survey from 2010. And so you can see I'm a little upset about this.
Yes.
Oh.
Because, and I swear, I'm gonna stop right here.
I'm like, I gotta jump in.
Take it.
I passed you a collection plate. I just love all of that, bro. Like all of it. And he is
so spot on. I was sitting back here, as I was flipping through, I'm like, yes, because that actually was my very next next question, OkCupid putting out that actually the book Dataclysm, where they talk about the percentages of women not being a really good option, or least desired is really the word, if we're going to be frank. Dominique, you work with women. You've been working with women for a number of years. Like, what are your thoughts about the statistics? Can you hear me? Dominique, we lost you. She disappeared.
Well, it's
okay. So while she gets back on, so Fayuna, you worked in tech. What are your thoughts about all of this?
I mean, I'm on the same page as Paul. I don't know if we're both from the Caribbean or what, but there are three really dramatic things that happen. It's not just for Black people, but also for women. So, same Time magazine, when you said 40 years ago that you had a better chance of being struck by lightning than finding a man after 40. 2009, a study came out saying 42% of Black women were single. 2009, and then in 2010 there was a study by OkCupid. And what they failed to talk about is not just the statistics that they're representing, but the margins. When we look at marriage as a whole across the United States, in every category, men outnumber unmarried in Black, white, Asian, and Hispanic. But only in the Black community is the disparity between men and women not being married the closest. It's 48%. I have notes here, but it's 48 and 45% Black men and Black women who are unmarried. It is 34 and 26% Asian Americans that are not married. So they're not just talking about bad information, disinformation when it comes to statistics. They're really just cherry picking the things that sound very good. Yes, 40% of Black women might be unmarried, but in some cases, 50 to 51% of Black men are unmarried. So who are they going to marry? So they're not even looking at a story in totality when they're throwing these numbers out there. So again, with Black men being late adopters to technology, you look at the gap of who Black men are choosing and who they're dating, the numbers they make sense and they're very favorable, especially when you compare them to non-Black categories. And one thing I'll add in there, Jasmine, you might have a question on also their misinformation with interracial dating, which was very wrong in that study that OkCupid did. And out of every race that was involved in that study, Asian women make up almost 50% of interracial daters and of interracial couples. It wasn't just that the information was wrong, it was that it wasn't a very full story. And across each category of race, I think that Black people actually performed, or the numbers were very favorable, or they made more sense than the story that they told.
Yeah, to me, it goes on to the clickbait. Hello?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah. To me, it goes on to clickbait. They know what's going to be glamorized and you share the most, just to get highlight on what they're doing as far as the app is concerned. Instead of highlighting the great things, plain and simple, 85% of Black men marry Black women. No one wants to highlight that. 93% of Black women have a Black husband. No one wants to highlight that. So I love what everything Paul said. I'm loving what everybody's saying. It's a beautiful thing to actually get this conversation started. Let people know the truth about what's going on when it comes to Black dating. So I appreciate all of you guys.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, go for it. Yes.
Because Paul and Fauna and everyone has talked about the disinformation. I want to talk about the reason why this narrative persists, because it's not just 2010. We can go back to 1970s with Robert P. Moynihan, a senator who commissioned this report to look at what's wrong with the Black family. Like, why are we having so many issues in Black communities around poverty, etc. And the conclusions they came were, there aren't any Black men in the home. So the Black community is a matriarchal society where single women are heading up these homes. And they are the reason why the community is pathological. We don't have to stop at 1970. We can go to the 19th century with the invention of what was called the cult of true womanhood, where you would see this in publications that white women were reading and writing. And they defined what a real woman, a true woman was. She was domestic. She was the angel of her home. She was pious. She was Christian. She was pure, sexually pure. She was submissive. And that invention of womanhood was created against what they saw what Black women were, right? This definition of what enslaved Black women were. And it was at the same time that you had stereotypes of the mammy, the Aunt Jemimas, right, who are asexual, who are undesirable, who are there to just serve white families. At the same time, you have the asexual stereotype, you have the Jezebel, who is hypersexual. All she wants is sex. She's so sexual that she's seducing these white slave owners into coming into their cabins. And so it was a story to override sexual assault and rape. At the same time, right, you had the angry Black woman who is just so masculine that men don't desire her. So this story that no one wants Black women is not a modern phenomenon. It has its roots in slavery. It is the legacy from that time. And it is the reason why we, as Black dating experts, have to continually raise our voices, disrupt the myth, right? Because our clients are consuming this information. It is taken captive of their hope. I can't tell you how many women come to me and they're like, I feel hopeless. There aren't any Black men who want me. And I'm like, are you serious? Right? Like, there are Black men everywhere who desire you. I started working with Black men as clients. And so, it helped me to give a perspective to the women that no, the reason why you're hopeless has nothing to do with reality. It has to do with these controlling images, these myths that you are consuming, and you need to start focusing in on the truth. Right. So I'm so glad that Paul raised it, that Fauna got the numbers, because we got to disrupt it. We got to call them out, right? Because they got to stop this.
Right. You know what? I just wanted to throw this too, is that
go ahead.
I think what's also very dangerous is not only are the consumers believing this, but the experts are believing this. And the experts, and I think it was already mentioned that most of the experts that get visibility in the dating space are white experts. So they carry this narrative with them. One thing that I think a lot of people always find to be crazy is that when I entered the dating space, so that was in 2008 as a matchmaker, what was fascinating to me is that I started surveying matchmakers all over the United States, right? And asking them about their practice. And literally, I'll say 99.9999% of them said, Paul, out of everyone, don't take on Black women as clients. And I said, why? I said, why do you say that? They said, because there are no Black men out here, right? And B, because the people who are out here don't want them. And then 3, they're litigious, right? So they'll sue you. And what's fascinating is then I turned around and created my entire practice focused on Black women. But the point there is that, think about this. These experts in the space bought into that narrative so much that they even refused. They refused to take on Black women as clients. And this is 2008, 2009, so not that long ago. So it's the experts also that are buying into this. And this is why consumers, is very important for everybody watching this, is that I believe you should disproportionately consume your content from people who at least value the same things that you value. They don't have to look exactly like you, but they should value the same things that you value. And so this is a big issue. And by the way, this is not just a U.S. issue. Like, this is a global issue. This is like the UK is going through everything that the U.S. is going through right now. Everything.
Yeah. I know I missed my turn. I'm having.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, no, go for it.
I'll just jump in and add, as Black women, statistically, we can become homeowners. Statistically, we can get a master's degree and have a business, but statistically, we can't get a man, right, and have children. And I think that's furthest from the truth. So I'm so glad you guys are speaking on that. There is love abundantly for us in the Black community, in the Black dating space. And I think that as Black women, because all of these stats are circulating to say otherwise, we have convinced ourselves that I might as well just give up on dating. Love is not going to happen for me. You know what I mean? I might as well step out of the game. And so a lot of the work that I've had to do with my clients is mindset, It's getting rid of limiting beliefs before I could even start matching them, because they have, like Paul said, started believing this narrative. And then it shows up in the way they show up in the dating. Right? Uncertainty, the limiting beliefs before I could even start matching them, because they have, like Paul said, started believing this narrative.
Teddy Riley up in the house. No, but all wonderful and great points. So in the past few weeks, and I'll let the echo dissipate. We good. All right. So in the past few weeks, did you want to add something, Fayuna?
Just one quick thing. I hope everybody, based on what we all shared and what everybody shared, I hope everybody after this will publish with the dating truth, will send me content, will send me an article, will give me an opportunity to platform to share what you're saying, because I think that really not just the Black experts and Black writers and people in this community are experiencing this has clearly viewed it. And so, I just want to put it out there that I want to publish everybody's work.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, so I just want to make sure before we move ahead, because I've seen a couple comments about audio. I want to be sure that you guys can hear us well. If you can really quickly hop in the comments, let us know if you're having any issues with audio, if the noise, if it's just real quick, just let us know, because we don't want you to miss this information, because it's such a great conversation that we're having. So, okay. Seems like we're doing okay. We're good. Okay. So what I was going to say, in the past few weeks, we've, seen business after business being called out by employees, right, who have faced discrimination in the workplace. We're witnessing popular dating apps like Bumble, saying things on Instagram. Last week they said, "We have work to do. We are listening." Grindr removed their ethnicity filter, but I wonder, is that enough? And I'm going to give this to you, Joseph, because you're in the dating app space.
Right. So what they've done is steps. They're taking steps. For instance, someone speak earlier about as far as the algorithm. A lot of people don't know. A lot of these algorithms on these dating apps really hinder you from meeting the person you want to meet. Like Paul said, they're in to make money. It's for profit. All the dating apps, most of the dating apps are owned. A lot of people don't know this, but they're owned by monopoly. A corporation. A lot of them. The main ones you get on are owned by one corporation. So it's a business for them. To me personally, as far as founding and launching RBL, when I got divorced in 2014, I went out there and tried to online dating. I realized, you know what? A lot of these dating apps are not catering to relationship Black singles. To me, it seemed like the only apps were out there were, some hookup apps or fling apps or things of that nature. It's like, do they not think that African Americans want real relationships? Do they not think African Americans want family? Like, what is going on here? So that is the reason why we formed RBL, is because of the fact that it seemed that corporate Americas only wanted to go to one side of the spectrum when there's a whole bunch of other African Americans out there that are looking for substantial connections. But as far as the other apps are concerned, those are great steps they're making. It's just, what are you doing, like Paul said, about your internal issue? For instance, Match.com, which is owned by AIC Corporation, they don't have anybody on their board as Black. They were ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, and not one Black dot was on the stage out of like 200 people. So yes, those are great, but there's other change that need to be had in these corporations to get more of our voice into their system as strategically. So that won't have to happen. They won't have to come back and recoil and say, "Hey, we're messing up. Let's do this," instead of already have it done from the beginning.
I love that. So the topic has come up quite a bit in matchmaker groups, in date coaching groups. For those of you who are not in the community, there's all these little hidden Facebook groups where we have discussions about many different things. And one of the things that have come up as of recent is, whether choosing a partner based on race is preference. So, I know all of you have something to say about this, but I do want to start off with Dr. Ish Major, psychiatrist. You work with a lot of couples and singles. Can you give your perspective?
Yeah, so choosing based on race, is that the question?
Yes, can you hear me? Yeah, so I was asking, is there a point when, dating by race becomes preference or vice versa?
Yeah, I think, it's one of those, it's a thing it's one of those internal conversations you've got to have, right? We typically pick the partner we think we deserve, right? And so part of that is we're going to pick the partner who's more comfortable with us. Part of that is we're going to pick the partner who helps me feel comfortable when I'm with them. And so the me part of that is I'm going to pick the partner who accepts me the most, right? We've all got this image in our head of what our life looks like and how we think we're going to show up in the world. And when it comes to what we do and who we are and how we look, and our partner is a big part of that. They're a reflection of us, right? A lot of people judge us by who we show up with. Whether you think that's fair or not, that's an unconscious bias. I'm going to look at you, I'm going to look at your partner, and I'm going to judge that relationship, and I'm going to make assumptions about you. It's what we do as humans. It's not right or wrong, but we're trying to figure everything out on the horizon. So you've got to take that into perspective, right? It's one of those things. You just really got to know where you are, right there. And you can't judge solely based on race. That's a big part of it, especially now. But I think that's a personal call. That's a deeply personal call on who you want to be with, how it is you think you want to show up in the world. I think a lot of times as Black folks, we think that we have to carry the mantle of all Blackness, right? And if we don't date within our race, then we're somehow cheapening that. We're somehow selling out. We're somehow, we're somehow not doing our part. Listen, there's a real big world out there, right? And it's more than just Black folks, and it's more than just white folks, and there's a whole lot of folks out there who are willing to accept you. So it's one of those things. You've got to be willing to expose yourself to other groups of people just to see how other groups view you. You would be amazed once you step outside this country how very differently the rest of the world sees you from the way you're seen when you show up here. And so I think that's a huge part of it. There's no right or there's no wrong answer, but you, on a spiritual level, you know who you think accepts you the most wholly, the most completely, the most immediately, without having to adjust or explain anything, right? You know who you think gets you on that cellular level. They can look at you and see, oh, I understand what kind of day you're having. Wherever you find that, I think you got to have sense enough to go with it.
Yeah. Anybody else want to jump in? Because I know you all have different perspectives. We've talked about this quite a bit.
Yes. So I was in on that conversation inside that secret little group, not so secret group. What was interesting to me is I think the question itself, we need to unpack what preference is and how it's shaped and how it's formed depending on the social context, the historical context, the cultural context. Because what I saw inside of that group is a lot of the non-Black people being like, it's just preference. It's the same as, saying you want someone who goes to an Ivy League school like you, or somebody, who makes the same income as you. And I'm like, no, boo, that's not the same. It ain't the same. Never been the same. So of course I had to put my professor hat on. Most people don't know that my PhD is in rhetoric and composition, and I studied Black feminist theories. I studied critical race theories. My dissertation was on the rhetoric of Black women preachers. So I had to put that on just for a second. And I had to tell them, that when it comes to race and preference, especially here, in the US and in other westernized, colonized places, that part of the way that Black people were dehumanized so that they could be brutalized and we could still be shot and killed by a police officer, right, on site, to say that you're less than human, was a project called uglification. So to make indigenous people or enslaved people ugly, to exaggerate the features, to say, you know, they're animalistic, they're monstrous, right? And so a lot of that influences how and who we see as attractive. So when a non-Black person swipes, for example, on a Black woman on a dating app, does he see her as a fetish? Does he see her as a stereotype? Does he see her as a human being, right? And then if they do and they engage into a relationship, what is the emotional layer that she may carry in trying to navigate that relationship as a Black woman who is going to be perceived, you know, in particular ways that he might not understand, right? Because he feels love is blind. So there's just too many nuanced, you know, aspects of this to just say it's preference. Also, what I want to add before I give it to other people is that for the way I see it, that love is political, that who we choose to partner with and, you know, who we choose to reproduce with, that it has political repercussions. This is why the Black community in particular was so excited about the Obamas, to see Barack married to a darker skinned woman, right, with 2 chocolate children in the White House is a political statement. And so for some people, you know, deciding to date within the race, particularly as Black people, it doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like a part of the movement, right? It's a part of the movement. So we really have to unpack what is preference, what is the purpose of the preference, right? How is that preference shaped if we're going to have this conversation?
You know, so this is what's really interesting to me is so in my matchmaking practice, I pretty much focused on Black women and Black men. But then when I started getting on television, it was all white television shows, and I would then pick up white clients. And this is typically how the conversation would go when I was matchmaking people on television to this day, where I'm doing these 2 shows in the UK. Is I would say, so who are you interested in meeting? And they'd say, and they, you know, him and haw, like, and then I'd say, how about, and maybe I'm talking to someone white. I say, how about this Black man, right? They say, I don't know. I don't know. And then the producers and other people will come to me and say, you know what? Oh, Paul, that makes sense. That's just their preference, right? They just prefer not to date anybody Black, right? But I think it's always interesting when you spin a question, right? So, okay, it's your preference to not date anybody Black. So then what is the reason why you don't want to date anyone Black, right? And then it would go into the, you know, a myriad of reasons. But the point is this, this is my opinion, is that I have always taken issue with someone who exclusively does not want to date someone that looks like themselves. That's always been a major issue of concern, point of concern. And I've had a friend, Black man, say, man, you know what? I don't want to. I just want to date this particular type of person who is not a Black person. And I always had an issue with that. And to me, that speaks to, I mean, just me personally, right? I'm not trying to throw daggers at anybody, but I'm saying that speaks to me to be an issue with self-love and self-esteem when you can't even visualize yourself with someone who looks like you. You know, it's just painful. And I see that, and I see that often. So, you know, in terms of preference, all that, for me, I'm with love is love, right? I'm love is love. If you say preference, I have a Black wife, right? But my issue with folks is when they say they don't want to date anyone that looks like them. That's really where I've got the issue. Me personally.
I just want to jump in, Jasmine, if I can. I think one thing about the industry on both sides, one being an expert if you're a matchmaker and one being a single person, is that when you attempt to work with a professional, it's for that professional, like Dominique mentioned, to open your mind, to get you into the right mindset. You're not going to a restaurant to order a spouse. You're working with a professional so that they can find you the best person for you. And so when you do have those limits, like Paul is mentioning, it sort of takes that idea of having a preference and taking it a step further, because you've come to this professional to walk you through a process that you're not able to manage on your own. I mean, me personally, as a single person, I've dated different races. I prefer to date Black men. And if I went to a matchmaker, I would be looking for love, and I would be open to the idea that this professional person is going to find me love and know what I'm looking for and know what is a good match for me. So I think where it becomes really dangerous in that preference section is that when it comes into the industry and the experts and the professionals are saying it's a preference, when they know that love comes in all different shapes, colors, sizes, everything. They know they have difficult clients. They know that their clients have preferences that are limiting to them. And so to then echo that idea that certain things are preferences, I think becomes a little bit dangerous, because, you know, the idea is like you want to be in the right mindset to find a partner.
You know, in the comments, it's interesting. I'm looking at the comments and I see some people saying, you know, like Adrian just mentioned, well, it could be, you know, if you choose not to date someone who looks like you, it could be that it's the result of a toxic mother or aunt or a sister. Well, then if it's a result of that, that means that you truly do have an issue with, I mean, you have an issue with yourself, right? That's something that psychologically you have to deal with. You know, the other thing, just to put this out, I feel like I'm now, just because I've got all these experts, I could just like divulge all of my all these gripes. Is, you know what something that really just pings at me, right? Is especially like through, you know, this revolution, Black Lives Matter revolution, is that you see so many people at the forefront. In particular, right? I'll see, you know, someone Black at the forefront of Black Lives Matter, and they're talking about like basically trying to profess how Black they are. And then you go look and you see, okay, they've only been dating and marrying white women their entire life. Like that's all. That's your record. So in other words, you love Black people so much that you chose never to date one Black woman. Like, I think that the choice of your spouse, as Sheryl Sandberg said, right? She is the most critical decision, political, business decision that you make. And once again, I'm for interracial marriage, right? I'm just saying that for those who try to just convince and compel us that they bleed Black, and you can't find one Black relationship that they've been in, like, we've got to question this. We've got to question this.
Yo, I'm telling you, this ain't the first time it's happened. This was a problem. This was a problem with Black power movements. And we would see the people at the forefront, and you would look to their right and see who was standing next to them, and it'd be a white woman. And the question, I remember talking about this in grad school, in a whole seminar on this, like, is that possible? And what came up was, for particularly, okay, so you can't have racism without capitalism. You can't have racism and capitalism without patriarchy, right? Like, you can't have, all of those systems are interlocking. So what we would discuss was, particularly for Black men, historically, in the, you know, being dehumanized, right? It would take away some of their masculinity. What some believed was, if I could get proximity to whiteness by having a white wife, then I can have access to power. We see it happening, you know, among Black people when we try to become respectable. I'm seeing some of it in the marches where men are like, let's wear suits. You know, if we march in suits, then we're going to get respect and they ain't going to shoot us. They shot Dr. Martin Luther King in a suit, and they shot Malcolm X in a suit. So, like, just having proximity to the appearance of whiteness does not give us the power, right, that we're looking for. And I'm not saying that every Black man who marries a white woman, that is what is happening, but that is a narrative, right, that has been happening. We can look at the 19th century, Ida B. Wells Barnett, who was a journalist and an activist, looked at lynching, right? And she looked at many Black men were being lynched because they were having relationships with what she called Delilahs. She called the Black men Samson, and she called the white women Delilahs, because they would get involved with these women. The women would then, you know, feel ashamed that they fell in love with these black men, would call rape, and then those men would be lynched, sometimes with the white woman standing right there, their lover standing right there. So, you know, this has been an issue that we see this thread throughout history, right, of how complicated, you know, interracial relationships are, and this whole concept of preference, right? Which is why I said many times that relationships are political. So even having a non-Black spouse, by political, I mean trying to access power. So it's mucky, it's you know, it's not simple to just say it's a preference and I desire this, that we often have to unpack what's going on psychologically. You know, what things have you been listening to? How have you been miseducated? How have you, what information have you received that has now shaped those things? So Paul makes an excellent point, that even if you choose the desire to still say, I do want to marry someone who doesn't look like me, can we just stop the conversation around, I'm choosing it because Black women aren't feminine enough, or Black women aren't submissive enough, or white women are this, or Asian women are that? Can we just say, I just like her and I want to marry her? Can we stop all the other narratives?
Yeah, I mean, this is like, I see the comments. This is a topic, I will say, you know, for a lot of us who, you know, are in a lot of ways we're struggling, right? You know, because some people, you know, or some of us prefer to date outside their race, and then there are others that don't. And so I understand this topic to be so awesome. Paul, thank you for just being on ball. Like, I'm seeing the comments, people are like, Paul is on point. So so moving it along, because I feel like this kind of, you know, is a lead into it. In many ways, Black singles are fighting against European beauty standards, right? Too dark. Our natural hair is, you know, kinky and unattractive. Dominique, maybe you could touch on this. You know, how can dating platforms address these issues? And do you think it's their job to do so?
Repeat the question, Jasmine. Sorry.
Oh, I was saying, you know, in terms of like beauty standards, you know, do you think it's the dating platforms' job to address these things, or, you know, how can they?
Well, one, I'll say that I think for me, you guys know, I always push to the women that I work with, you're valuable, you know, you matter, you're enough, you have the right to choose the type of relationship experiences you want to have. And I think when you go on dating sites that don't reflect that, right? When you work with people and you see these narratives that don't reflect that, it hurts. So I think what it is like we need, like we're doing now, having town hall discussions, having conversation about it. They need to have conversations with women. They need to have conversation with people of color about what they're representing, how their users are feeling, their paid users are feeling while on their platform, what they can do to do better, all of that. I think it's about hearing each other. I think it's about creating a space for people to speak, and then putting some action behind that so that everyone feels like this platform, whether it's eHarmony, whether it's Bumble, whether it's Joseph's platform, there's a space for me. You know, that's how I feel.
You're on mute. Unmute.
I'm talking.
RBL, what I love with everything Dominique said with RBL, we're just not a dating app. You know, it's a community. And first thing I did, I said, you know what, I need to make a platform where not only the singles of this app can go and meet people, but they can have conversations, because dating is just not going out and having some drinks or something like that. The successful dating is really understanding that your opposite sex, what makes them tick, what makes them, move from day to day, learning relationships between the sexes, Black men and Black women. Because I'm just gonna be honest, for the last 3 years prior to the Black Love movement, the Black Lives movement, it seems like Black men and Black women just being butting heads. And I said to myself, you know what, this has to stop. But how can we mitigate all of this back and forth and going at each other's necks? So, you know, with RBL, it's just not the app. We have a Facebook group with over close to 50,000 people in it. You know, we do live shows, dialogue and things like that, something similar to this, because that conversation needs to be had. And I think with all these other dating apps, that's where they're missing the ball, because, you know, it's all about, like Paul said, it's about the bottom line. it should be much more than just a bottom line. It's to really help people in relationships when they get into relationships as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. There was actually someone that mentioned in the comments that dating platforms should evaluate their algorithms for bias. Do you guys agree with that?
Right. So I stated earlier, a lot of these other dating apps, not RBO, we don't have any algorithms or anything of that nature. It's a pure dating app. You get on there, there's no swiping right, because I believe swipe right, swipe left is all about looks. You really don't get to know someone by just one little picture. So it's a true dating app. So what we did is say, you know what, let people discover who they feel be the best for them. We're not going to decide who you're interested in. You feel what I'm saying? So a lot of these other dating apps do have algorithms, and it are kind of biased. A lot of people just don't know it. You know, if you're swiping right to a certain skin tone, guess what they're going to show you? That same skin tone. And you may miss that perfect person for you just because of the algorithm of the app.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
You know, I don't want to just keep going in on the dating sites. A lot of my friends run a lot of those dating sites, but speaking to Kimoy and her point is those large dating apps, the quote unquote mainstream dating apps, they have no incentive whatsoever to change their algorithms. And it goes back to exactly what Joseph continues to say, and that is that they are profit driven. They're businesses, right? All businesses were profit driven, but understand the business that dating apps are in. Okay. They are in really they have two main sources of revenue. One is advertising dollars. The second is data, right? So they make money through advertising, and they make money now and through data. They make it in a myriad of other ways, but these are the two big lines. Now, what's the key to making lots of money in advertising and making lots of money in data? It's one, that is having a homogenous audience. If you have a homogenous audience, right? If I'm trying to sell, actually, let me say this with all black people, if I'm trying to sell this cocoa butter right here that I put all over my lips when I'm talking so much, right? If you are selling cocoa butter, do you want to sell cocoa butter to 10 people that all have the same need, right? Like dry lips like me? Or do you want to sell it to 10 different people that have 10 different needs? No, you want to sell it to 10 of the same people. So these dating sites, they want to have as many of the same type of people as possible. And here's the bottom line. Right now, you see dating apps are putting up, questions, like they've been started to include questions like, how do you feel about social injustice? And you could put up a Black Lives Matter sticker on your profile. Like all of that is placating. It's just placating. If you are Black and you are interested in dating someone Black, you got to go to RBL. You got to go to our destinations. It's just like when I was coming up and I wanted information on business, I had to read Black Enterprise. Right? You have to go to Black Enterprise if you're going to read, right? So this is the bottom line. They have no incentive to change their business model at all.
Yeah. I know we've been talking a lot about apps and like websites and stuff, but racial, inequality isn't just felt by, Black daters on these websites. We see in the media with publications, right? Not including our voices, networks not showing our stories. For example, and this is the most recent one because it's so relevant to this discussion, ABC's The Bachelor, after 40 seasons, 40 and 18 years, and a verbal, protest by the last Black Bachelorette, the last and the only Black Bachelorette, they finally put a Black man in the lead role. So, I know, Paul, you have been on tons of shows, and I know all of us can kind of speak to this, but I want to get Paul's opinion first. What can networks and publications do to be more inclusive?
All right. This one hits home for me. This one hits home because y'all may not know, but I had so I was signed to ABC. This was about 4 years ago. And ABC commissioned, I got to executive produce a show called I Need Love, right? I Need Love. We shot it for 1 full year, put together 2 pilots, and then we put it on air. And this is exactly what happened. We got one shot at the show. I need love, right? What happened is that I was basically told, right? I was basically told that, Paul, the audience, right? This show is competing with The Bachelor, and The Bachelor's demographic is this. And they broke down specifically what it's, you know, it's young white women in particular that watch The Bachelor, right? This is it. And if they threw my show on, those numbers would dip. Less white women, right, would be watching the show. And there's lots of reasons for it, but less would be watching the show. And ultimately, what does that impact? It goes back to the numbers. It goes back to the advertising dollars. So here's my prediction. Here's exactly what's going to happen with The Bachelor. Knee-jerk reaction, let's put a Black Bachelor on. The numbers are going to go down, and they're going to throw a white Bachelor on for the next several sessions, right? Why? Because the system is already built around it. This is why it's important. I mean, this actually, it's interesting. I'm thinking everything is historical. This is why it's like, you know, it's like the Buy Black movement is that if we want to really change network television, yes, it's important for us to show up on television. Yeah, that's important, right? But really, it's more important for us to create our own content and create our own platforms. That's the most important bit. It's kind of like now, knee-jerk reaction, let's start investing in companies, right? That's what companies are doing. But the real solution is we need to build our own companies, right? And so that's ultimately where it is. I've been in television for 10 years. And I will tell you that I am not hopeful for our inclusion on television to the point where it shifts the narrative. They're always going to want to drop some chocolate in there on TV to be politically correct. But if we want to talk about creating narratives that will positively impact our community, we have to create our own content. That's the bottom line. We have to create our own content and our own platforms.
Yeah, you know, I knew you were going to be like feeling this one for sure. And if any of you have like any insight on this, I mean, it's I think we're all kind of exhausted, right? You know, from not having the inclusion that we want. I want to talk about your experience as experts in the industry. So I personally have gotten some heat, to say the least, for talking about my own experiences. Some people even question my motives, but brands across all industries, from entertainment to STEM to healthcare, they've been forced to acknowledge racism, pay disparity, prejudice and discrimination. Fayuna, I'm gonna throw this one at you. Should dating brands have their own come to Jesus moment in terms of like thinking about inclusion and diversity within their organizations?
Yes is the answer, but I'll say this. The movement should never encourage businesses not to operate like businesses. We know that they're businesses and we know that they're there to make money. The fact, however, is that Black people and the Black economic power is available to a lot of businesses who are interested in leveraging it. When Rachel Lindsay was the Bachelorette, I mean, there were so many things that happened within that season that kind of just went unspoken. And so when you invest in being diverse from an economic standpoint, there's a lot of great benefits that happen in that way. But unfortunately, if people don't think like that, like if they assume that the businesses have to be more morally strong or for communities or for the people, then they lose sight of the fact that there are opportunities and ways to make money from working with the community, working with more Black voices that are not just taking a white thing and replacing it with a Black person, that actually includes creative nuance when it comes to creating content for people or engaging the Black community as a whole. And I think that, you know, as a business, especially when you're in this industry, the dating industry is a multi-billion-dollar business, but there are a lot of independent providers, experts, publishers who are not making that money, who are struggling in business. And so when you think about where the responsibility is, it's not just to be diverse. It is to understand that there's money that comes from from Black people. There's money that comes from providing the right service to Black people. And you have to leverage that from a business standpoint, not just replacing something for white people traditionally with a Black product or with Black people.
Yes, Dr. Aisha, I know we have been, we talked about inclusion issues quite a bit. I'd love to get your perspective on this.
Well, I mean, the whole term of inclusion, right, assumes that we don't own the table. So if like we're just asking to have a seat at the table, somebody else still owns the table. Somebody else is still in control and in power and making the major decisions. And they're just like, oh, okay, you can be included in it. What I would like to see is more of a disruption in the ways in which things are done in the industry. If we can start on a micro level, right? If we look even at within these Facebook groups and in our matchmaking and love coaching professionals, that there are oftentimes when Black dating experts are not included in some of their collaborative projects. Like if they do a virtual summit, how many chocolate faces do you see on that summit? And I remember, in my early days of really trying to launch my business and reaching out to those folks and trying to be included. And they would be like, well, do you only work with Black women? Oh, I don't work with Black women. Like they did not see my market as valuable, right? There were times that I would even be told when I was trying to get my certification in matchmaking that, I should start off providing my services for free because I was going to have such a huge learning curve, while the people sitting next to me, my colleagues who are non-Black, were saying, I'm going to, start my services off at $10,000 or $50,000. They didn't even have a database. And that was approved. There were people who, when I started out as a matchmaker, who assumed that I only worked with Black people because I was Black, right? And in the beginning, I didn't. I was trying to serve, a more diverse market. So I think that if we're going to be talking about diversity and inclusion, we have to start, even on a micro level, having our colleagues begin to see that our expertise is valuable, that even if and though we serve a primarily Black audience, sometimes by choice, sometimes by default, that our knowledge, right, is still necessary for the industry. And we got to start having those conversations.
Yeah, I agree with that. So just kind of staying on, just experience working in the industry, when it comes to growing your brand and networking or even existing in the dating space in general, Black professionals often find themselves kind of like isolated. So, what do you think, besides what you mentioned, Dr. Aisha, Dominique, do you think that there is even more that they could do to support minority owned and Black owned businesses? Can you hear me, Dominique? We lost her again. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. But Paul, do you want to add anything to that?
So I would chime in as far as the as far as these platforms. For instance, with RBL, we were not allowed to advertise on these major social media platforms for almost 7 years. I'm not sure if it's because they didn't see the value of what we're bringing, or they just didn't want our faces on there promoting Black love. So it's kind of funny when you tell, RBL that, you're not a dating partner, you can't advertise, but then we see all these other segregated dating apps. So, I'm glad this movement, this Black Lives Movement, and all these other great movements are really bringing awareness to, hey, we need inclusion, because recently we just got accepted on Facebook as an advertising partner. I don't think without the movement, it would have happened. So now, we have a whole gamut of all these great singles that are looking for real relationships may actually know who RBL is. And that's just a piece of the puzzle is these huge social media companies and such, just including us in the programming, and that's just the first step.
Yeah. I agree with all of that. So, many non-Black experts, they don't necessarily see or even understand the struggles of dating while Black, right? Even though they might have Black clients, interface with Black experts, one prominent matchmaker said, quote, "It's so great that racism doesn't exist." So I wonder, what can experts do? People in our industry that are not Black, what can they do to better realize the experiences of their clients?
Jasmine, who said that?
Yeah.
Who said that there was no racism?
Oh,
who
you want me to name drop?
Who said that? Because I must.
Patty Stanger. I'm name dropping.
Oh, wow.
Patty Stanger actually said that.
What year did she say that?
I'll
This
answer that.
year.
She actually blocked me on Twitter when I was first starting out.
Wow.
Yeah, well, we're not gonna talk about
hot. It's getting hot. Y'all got some lemon slices, some lemon pound cake to go with this tea, because
wow.
No, but I just wonder, is there something that our counterparts can do to better understand what it's like for their clients who may be Black, as they date in society? Is there something that they can learn or take away?
Yeah. I'll throw this in, is that the responsibility is not on us. What I find to be really interesting about the last several weeks is that I've had many white people come to me to say, "Paul, what's going on? Like, I don't understand. Can you explain to me what white privilege is? What's happening? Why are you guys so angry?" Like and you think about this, you think about the fact that we, the oppressed, are now being asked to explain and help the oppressors to explain to them how and why they are oppressing us. It's just like, it's maddening. It's maddening. The responsibility is theirs. But what our responsibility is to take care of each other, to take care of us, right? And one thing that I want to throw out is I see in a lot of comments saying, "Well, man, we've been talking about platforms for so long. We've been talking about our own thing for so long. Like, when are we going to get it done?" These platforms already exist today, but we have to reshape our thought or our ideas around what a platform is, right? 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I was growing up, right, in New York, right, in the 80s, there were like 4 or 5 channels. That's it. 4 or 5 channels. That was it. You would steal HBO, and you would then get, Fox and NBC and ABC. That was it. That's all you had. Fast forward to today, we have hundreds of thousands of channels. My point is that this is the way platforms work. Back in the day, very few platforms. Today, now there are many platforms, but the platforms will never be as big as they once were. There's never going to be another Facebook, right? There will be lots of small platforms. So we have to reshape that paradigm around what is a platform. And then we have to support the platforms that already exist. Like, how many are watching this are on RBL? Or, how many, like, literally, I love to know how many folks are single who are on RBL. Because if you're single and you're Black and you're interested in somebody Black, why are you not on RBL? Right. So I think that's it. We have to start with us, support us. Mm-hmm. And I will.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, no, but Paul is so right, because our non-Black colleagues coming to us asking us to do the emotional labor when our bandwidth is limited, if we're grieving, what's happening. Number one, but number two, the same question that you are asking us in our DMs, there's this amazing tool that will pull up millions of resources. You want to know what the name of that tool is? It's Google. You could type that same question into Google, like, what is white privilege? How do I become an ally? And I promise you, somebody wrote a book or a blog or a video. Like, in other words, you have to do your own work. That's number one. Number two, if you are a white coach, a non-Black coach in this industry, you now know several people that you could hire as consultants to help you as you are coaching your client. In other words, we take American Express, we take PayPal, we take Stripe. Like, we have done the work to become experts in our field and to come and ask us for knowledge, to pick our brain. And you're not giving any win-win. You're not saying, let me connect you and network you, with someone else. What do you need in your business, right? How can I support you? And you're coming, right, to mine us, to mine our knowledge, pay us then, right? Like if you want to become better at what you do and you are marketing and taking the money of a Black single or someone, and you're out of your league, then find an expert. And you have a whole bunch of us. You got our handles now. You can find us and we'll be happy to invoice you.
Yes, Fayuna, you want to say something?
Yeah, I will say this. When I started, Paul was the first person that really I reached out to, has been a great mentor to me in my career. And the most important thing I have seen is that you have to stay in business. Because I've been in this industry. I started writing in 2006. I started my website in 2009. And I have a database of experts and websites that are no longer serving single people, that are no longer in business. And so the first part of not only the part that our allies have to play is the part that we have to play, which is we have to figure out how we are going to stay in business to be able to capitalize and take advantage of what those opportunities are, and then also to serve clients and to be a resource to the community. When you look at dating apps, when you look at, yes, they are owned by Match. Yes, they are owned by Badoo. They are owned by these mega conglomerate companies, and they didn't have to struggle as startups. They didn't have to raise capital. They didn't have to hustle. And so you see them as these huge companies, but they didn't start out scrappy. They started out already having the capital. So one of the biggest challenges where I think it does fall in the laps of Black-owned businesses is to stay in business, is to have longevity enough so that you can start to compete and then work with bigger companies as opportunities arises. But there are so many people who just as entrepreneurs don't stay in business long enough that they can't serve clients, can't capitalize on opportunities. I mean, being in this industry, you guys all know, anything over 5-6 years is a long time. There are a lot of people who started out and are no longer doing what they're doing. And so just having the longevity and being able to stay in business, I think, is where Black people have to take ownership. But for allies, I mean, you have to know that that's not everybody's struggle. Everybody is not struggling. Everybody is not struggling to find clients in order to keep their business afloat. So really what is on us is being able to stay in business as long as we can.
Yeah, I love that. He's so on point. So I know we're kind of like dwindling down on like the last few questions. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys for everyone, sharing their thoughts in the comments. We touched on this earlier, which was, the Black Lives Matter movement kind of changing the way like brands and businesses operate and the way that people think about it. But I wonder, in terms of like interracial relationships, and sorry, I'm kind of digging in my ear because I'm losing my earpiece. So in regards to, just the changes that are happening, do you feel like the progress that we've made as a people in the movement, do you think that's going to change how people see interracial relationships? And, any one of you, can chime in. Paul, if you have any thoughts.
I mean, I think on interracial relationships, I think that the main thing to look at is just how the different generations, consider interracial dating. It's like my parents, baby boomers, they're still like, oh, I don't know about that, right? Gen X is like, all right, maybe we can get down with that. Millennials like, okay, yeah, this is good. Gen Z is like, whatever, And so I think it's very clear what the future looks like. And I think that's why it's also fascinating to see people take issue with certain things now like that, because you're going against history.
Dominique, can you hear by chance?
I can hear now. I don't know why my computer won't let me be great.
But did you want to add any insight to that? Because I know you were dipping in and out.
Well, what I was going to say to the biracial point is I was talking with a Black guy who's married to a white woman, and the challenges that they're experiencing in their marriage right now because of their racial differences. He's feeling bad for his wife because she's a white woman who, from her people, that are her friends, family, colleagues, they're looking for her to kind of be polarized in how she feels about what's going on in the world. So she's getting flack from her white racist, peers who feel like she's being too Black. She's getting, criticism from her white peers who are friends and colleagues who are saying, you are married to a Black man, you shouldn't be silent. And it bothered me that the Black man felt bad for his wife, but she wasn't feeling bad for her husband and what he's experiencing and the children that they're raising to go out into the world as Black people. And so I was just like, why do you feel sad for where she's at? And why isn't she feeling sad for you and what you're having to face every day as a Black man? And so I think that when you're in a biracial relationship, like you have to.
Oh no, she was getting good.
I hit the truth bomb. You have to.
She was hit. Look, Facebook is like, nope, that's a secret.
Right.
But she's right. She was spot on. Anybody want to carry forward what you were saying? Go ahead, Fayuna.
I just want to jump in, to what Dominique was saying. I mean, for me, I'm single and I've dated white men. I've dated Black men. Almost every person I am close to, whether it's a sibling or a best friend, is married to a white person, except for one white person who is married to a Black person. Every single one. And I think it was more of a result of growing up in Pittsburgh, where I grew up, and what the culture is like. And as you start to step into new rooms and new opportunities, you see the options to meet the people that you feel aligned with become fewer and fewer Black options. And so this has been my experience growing up. When I moved to California, I had to make a choice based on everything I know, based on the work that I do, on everything I believe. I had to make a choice not to only date one race, but to prioritize dating Black men. Finding ones I liked, not villainizing all of them for some I didn't like. And it was something I had to think about. I could have just been like, this is great, love is wonderful, let me find who I fit with. But it's something that I realized as I started to look into the history of marriage and wealth and what all of this meant, like Dr. Aisha said, politically, I had to make a decision that, okay, I'm going to be intentional and try to find the best fit for me in a Black man, and have a certain outlook about it. So I think when it comes to interracial dating, love is love. And it's something that people can find in whoever. But there is a point when you think about marriage being the institution it is, the way marriage started, the politicism, the wealth building, the history of marriage in and of itself. You don't have the opportunity to just make cavalier choice, even though people do. And so we know the statistics of marriage. We know that it's not working for people. We know that all of these things happen within a marriage. So making the choice becomes something that has to involve every part of your values and standards. It cannot just be, I like this person, I'm feeling them. It really has to be from the very beginning, what intention am I trying to build for my future, for my wealth, for my life, and all those things put together. So I'm going to try to add I'm about to log in after.
Go ahead and log in.
Yes.
No, I'm so glad.
Actually, can I ask this real quick?
Go ahead, Paul.
Joseph, are you single?
Actually, no. I'm in a relationship with a lady that I met on my app.
Okay.
It works.
I was about to try to make something happen real quick.
Right.
Paul's on matchmaker mode.
Right.
Paul, I've been waiting for you to make something happen for me.
I know. I think better late than never. Better late than never.
Yes, I love it. Dr. Aisha, it looks like you wanted to add on to that.
Yeah, I just was so glad that Fayuna, I said it right, girl? Did I say it? Okay, because I don't need to pronounce your name right. That you said the word institution, right? That marriage is an institution. And if we're talking about racism and how it is institutionalized, right? That's why marriage does not, interracial marriage does not escape, the yucky stuff. I'm looking for the right word. But it does not escape the hands of racism, right? Because it is still an institution. So this is why, right, you know, you could have a Black spouse and a white spouse and one not understand, you know, the experience of the other, because one has gone through institutionalized and systemic racism. The other may have benefited from it. So I was scrolling on Facebook and saw a white woman, you know, kind of posting her thoughts about what was going on. And I, along with other white and Black people, checked her on it. Like, what are you talking about? That is so out of pocket. And then some of her friends posted, because you have a Black husband, I believe you are an authority and I will listen to you because you have brown babies. You know what you're talking about, right? And so it was just really interesting that, you know, these white people were looking in on her marriage and thinking because somehow she was able to, you know, fall in love, date, and marry a Black man, that she was now an authority on Blackness. But, you know, if we look at it, it's an institution. The marriage is an institution. She has been institutionalized in a different way than her husband has. So I think we always have to think about that because, you know, the show Love is Blind, you know, we had the interracial couple on there. And so it's easy to really feel like, well, we have overcome racism because look at this couple. But the marriage is still an institution. And it is an institution inside of a westernized society, and racism, sexism, you know, exploitation, all of those things still touch that institution as well.
Yeah. I mean, yes. All of this, yes. You know, this is a good opportunity to touch on something we talked about earlier. And I think maybe even Paul brought this up was, you know, we can't really address what's going on as daters in the Black community without tackling colorism, right? As experts and as Black people in the community, skin tone, facial features, hair type, it's something that's talked about quite a bit. You know, I'm like, who do I want to throw this to first? Who do I want? I think, you know, Dr. Aisha, you've given some great insight, but how do we address colorism and dating as a community?
So we really need to understand historically where it comes from, because I think so many of us kind of live into stereotypes without understanding who created that in the first place. And remember, I was talking about, so bell hooks created this term, white supremacist capitalist patriarchy, right? So that you can't have one without the other. And so this idea that the closer you are to whiteness, right, the more economic power you have, the more political power you have, the more respectability that you have, really infiltrated our communities. And we go back to why we are different shades in the first place, right? The enslaved people in the fields versus the ones in the home, and the proximity that certain slave owners had access to Black women, and then, you know, started to assault them, keeping their children, you know, all of the history of that. When we understand that, I think we would stop privileging one skin tone over the other, understanding that we all have been traumatized by this project called white supremacy. And because I think we've been so disconnected from that history, we keep carrying on, you know, this story about brown skinned women, you know, aren't as beautiful, light skinned women, light skinned men are out of style now. It's the Black chocolate ones, you know, because men experience it as well. And so I've had to do a lot of inner work with my clients so they can release the shame and the embarrassment and just all of the trauma around what their skin tone is like, and their fears that they wouldn't be able to attract a partner because of what their skin tone is like, or he's only with me because I'm light skinned, you know, and I'm not dark skinned. He sees me as a trophy. So it is very much still alive and well in our communities. We have to understand where it comes from so that we can take agency and say, yes, we're still going to believe this, or no, we're done with this.
Yeah. Joseph, I want to get your perspective on this.
I was trying to stay away from this.
I saw you looking to the side. I was like, ooh,
being a light-skinned man, I was trying to stay away from this. But like my last 2 or 3 relationships, you wouldn't believe some of the things I've heard the women say to me because I was a light-skinned man. Like, I've never dated a light-skinned man before because I thought you guys were this and that and third. You know, it was just weird hearing that from another Black person. Like, you're literally you're shrinking your dating pool because of a skin tone, but we're the same people, like all light skinned men are supposed to act a certain way, or all dark skinned men are supposed to act a certain way. Like it's just crazy. And I just wish that us as a people just drop all of that, because it filters down not only to us, but to our kids as well. And our kids grow up thinking the same things. And then here we go with the cycle. It just keeps going and going and going. So for, Paul earlier was talking about as far as support, it starts with us as far as, dropping this colorism when it comes to dating, jobs, whatever, or just being with each other, you may go out and you see a group of women that are all dark-skinned women, or a group of women that's all light-skinned women. It's like, what's going on here, So I think we definitely, it's a topic that we need to talk about a little bit more in depth. But as far as dating, as colorism, I've been through it. I've recently been through it, The one I'm in a relationship right now, she said she hasn't dated light-skinned men in 15 years because she had certain mindset of a light-skinned man. And she come to find out that, hey, light-skinned men are romantic. They're not just all players or whatever, the misconceptions are with light-skinned men. So, I just think that people conversations like this need to be had to just drop all of it.
Yeah. Paul, looks like you want to say something.
Just two quick things. That's how I'm going to talk forever, because I say just two real quick. Colorism, as every ism is a trauma. I saw somebody post it in the comments here that we have to realize that we are not that we Black people, I believe every single Black person on this planet suffers from generational trauma.
Yeah.
And that generational trauma must be healed, and the healing starts with us, right? So it's about us healing us first, right? Us healing each one of us as an individual first, right? So that's just a real quick thing. That's the reason why I think therapy is everything. And, when people come into the matchmaking agency, the first thing that we would work on would be therapy, right? So that's one thing I just wanted to put aside. The second thing is just this real quick, is that I see there's a couple of fellas in the comments. Anthony Jones, I see you right now. He said he didn't know what RBL is. So he's either single or he's in a relationship that he's not happy with. Right. So I see some folks in here. So I just want to say real quick, Anthony Jones, let's leave this dating town hall with a win. Why don't you tell us real quick, Anthony, just give us real quick your values, where you live, right? Your values, where you live, and just and age. Values, where you live, and age. Although I'm not real big on age. Drop that in the comments, and let's see if we could make some happen. Because real talk, real talk. The key, one of the key. So political power follows economic power. Mm-hmm. Key to economic power is our coupling. I really believe it. Right, it's our coupling. Right. So let's get real focused on helping everyone around us get matched.
Right.
Let's be real about that. So Anthony, come on, man, tell us real quick. All right, there you go. Right? Values, age. Right, values, age, and then where you live. Although right now you can hop on a plane.
He's like, I'm gay, but that don't matter, Anthony.
Yeah. Anthony, put out. Anthony,
it doesn't matter
now. It don't matter.
Paul just mentioned something that
we are experts.
Paul just mentioned something that weighs heavy. As far as the economic power, and I told everyone, basically, they're like, I want to make more money. Well, get married. It's that simple. Find a great match and get married, and you will see a huge pay raise. And not only that, it's just good for our community. It's good for our community. Instead of just being single out here, you can find someone great for you. Build a family, build wealth, build a legacy. It's a beautiful thing when people are getting matched. All my buddies that are married right now, they say as soon as I got married, man. I feel like I just gained the world. I just gained the world because not only the economic power that we had together, but it was just somebody that you could live life with and experience it with. So I'm just loving what everything you guys are saying. I appreciate you guys really bringing me on this, and it's a beautiful thing. I think we need to have things like this a lot more.
Yeah, I do. So this was kind of like a wrap up question, and Paul actually kind of tackled it without me even having to ask it, which was like, as people, we have been through so much, right? We've had so much trauma, generational experiences that have impacted our choices, how we navigate. You answered this question, Paul, which is, how do we heal from this? But, what more can we do to continue to not allow these things to damage the relationships that we want to have? Therapy is obviously something that's important. Dr. Aisha, do you want to give some insights on what more people can do to heal?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a lot of this work with my clients in the past couple of years, is really helping them to locate the trauma, because the trauma is not just in our minds, it's in our bodies. If you study mind-body science, if you look at epigenetics and how traumas get passed on, generationally, it's in the DNA. There's a saying, there are issues in our tissues. So for some of us, it manifests as diseases and as chronic, issues. And so I've been doing a lot of energy healing with clients. I think it's important for us to tap into our own traditions and our own spiritualities when we are doing these healings, because we do have modalities, right, that are able to really reach in and to locate those traumas, to load them up and to let them go. Whereas, if we kind of only rely upon Western science and Western medicine, we'll miss it. And so I think that's why it's so important, as Paul keeps, telling us, that we have to take care of ourselves, that we have to come together as collectives, because we have a whole wealth of knowledge to be able to start to deal with these things. So we need to do therapy. We need to deal with the mind. We need to deal with the body. We need to deal with energy. We need to deal with the spirit, all at the same time. And then the last thing is that our relationships in and of themselves are healing. There is a big misconception. I saw it in the thread, that somehow you need to be 100% healed and whole before you enter into a relationship. But relationships in and of themselves are healing, because as you open up and you become vulnerable with each other, those spaces and places, right, that were touched by trauma, someone else is able to see them, to love you, to support you, and also sometimes hold you accountable, right, to your growth. And so we don't have to hold ourselves back from love, because love in and of itself is healing.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we're kind of at the close of this, and I feel like I want to take the opportunity before we all walk away from this to dispel a few myths. As experts, we have an obligation to support and uplift the community. So myth number one, and I'm going to give this to you, Paul. Black men don't date Black women. You addressed this a few years ago when Married at First Sight experts made this bold, wrong claim. Can you speak on that?
I have no, that is such a, I mean, I'm not talking about you as the question, but I'm saying,
yeah.
That is such a ridiculous myth that I refuse to even waste my words. My words are too important to waste my words on that. That's how ridiculous that statement is. And actually, and I want to say this is that, but I understand why we buy into it, right? Mm-hmm. And one thing that I want to say, I think this is very important. This also dovetails with the therapy. This is for everybody, is that if you want to change your life, change what you consume.
Right.
Like, you want to change your life, change what you consume. We are what we consume. On this freaking lockdown, I have been drinking a bottle of port wine every night. I am now just a bottle of port right now. This is bad, right? We are what we consume. So that's the same that goes up here. And so it's very important that we get around inspirational, aspirational, and instructional content. And I guarantee you, your life changes if most of your content is that. So get off the gossip blogs, stop following trash people, on Instagram, stop watching garbage television, stop when you have a little bit of time, and don't watch garbage Netflix film. Like, if you get the trash out of your life, you're going to see how much value you actually have in your life. So that's I just wanted to,
So myth number two, we're going to dispel, because we're at the tail end of this and we just got to knock them down. being Black makes it harder for you to date. Fayuna, you want to talk on that?
Sure. So I'm a statistics person, and when you look at relationships in general, when you look at marriages, they're a mess. They're a mess across the board. They're a mess in a lot of ways because of divorce, because of domestic violence. And so this idea that other people are having successful marriages, other people are having successful partnerships, except for Black people, is part of that narrative. And honestly, I think the best thing that you can do is understand that this is a choice you were never really meant to make. There were elders and villages and matchmakers in the community and priests, and there were so many other people involved in the decision centuries ago that we are now making for the first time for ourselves. And so doing all the work for yourself, you can do work with a professional, a matchmaker is probably a great thing, but knowing that it's a really big responsibility. It's a really big responsibility, and a lot of people don't get it right. So it's not a Black problem, it's a human problem.
Yes, yes. Okay, myth number 3 we're going to dispel. Black women are angry and hard to deal with. I could be a little angry and I could be a little hard to deal with. Dr. Aisha, let's dispel that myth.
Yes. Oh God. Okay. So, Black women are angry, and we have a right to be angry. Anger is a human emotion. It is a power emotion. It drives us into action. So there isn't anything wrong, with being angry. What that stereotype does, though, is to say that when Black women use our voices, right, that somehow we are so angry that we are out of control. And so then along comes the tone police, right, who want us to be docile. They want us to be submissive. They want us to allow them to kill us and then tell them that we loved it. I forgot whose quote that was, but a Black intellectual said that. So that one really is about silencing and making Black women small and submissive. What I really teach my clients, in my coaching practice, is to get in touch with their anger, to understand what the anger is telling them, because it's usually telling them their boundaries are violated, they've been hurt in some way, they feel betrayed. Like, what is the message of the anger? And then how can I communicate that in a way that is direct, it is assertive, it is kind, but it is also heard. So we're not hard to deal with. We just need you to listen. And our responsibility as Black women is to learn how to communicate in a way that we are heard, but it is everyone else's responsibility to hear us with empathy.
Yes, yes. Okay, so myth number 4, Black people aren't capable of love. Joseph, take us home.
What in the world? As we are very loving people, it's not that we're not capable of love, it's just how do we find love? We have to have the platforms for it, the right platforms for it. And I mean, that was one of the main reasons why I started RBL, which stands for Real Black Love. That way, relationship-focused African Americans can also find other relationship-focused African Americans. But there's great platforms. You go on IG, you go on Facebook, you see all of these platforms. I mean, I'm sorry, these companies and certain IG handles, all they do is promote Black love. And like Paul said earlier, watch what you intake. If you all you see is Black love, Black love, Black love, that's what you're gonna gravitate to, and you're gonna see it and you're gonna believe it. But if you go to these other gossip sites and these idiotic clickbaits talk about Black women can't find a man and all this other stuff like that, that's what you're going to believe in. So just be mindful of what you take in. But yes, black people are capable of love. We're one of the most loving. What other race would go through all they go through and still have, what I'm saying, give and all this other stuff like that? Like, it's just crazy for the fact that someone would actually make a comment like that and saying that Black people are not capable of love. We're like the most loving people on this earth.
Yeah. I want to thank each of you for joining us on Dating While Black. You guys in the comments have been spectacular. You guys, panelists, each and every single one of you are, people I personally know and respect. And for Dominique Clark, who had to drop out, as well as Dr. Ish Major, I absolutely love and adore you guys. You can find all of these experts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, but specifically, I want to give you all an opportunity to let people know how they can find you. Dr. Aisha, how can people connect with you?
Yes, you can connect with me on Instagram at Dr. Aisha. You have to spell out doctor, otherwise it looks like Dracia. So I had to spell Dr. Aisha. And then you can also find me, on my website at blacklovematchmaker.com.
Awesome. Paul, how about you? Can you give insight where people can connect with you?
Yep. Connect with me on Real Black Love. Real Black Love. That's where you can connect with me.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Joseph, since we're talking about it, can you tell people how they can get the app and all of that?
Yeah, you can download the app on Google and iTunes Store. We have over 350,000 singles nationwide. We also have a Facebook group that's awesome. Black Singles Dating Chronicles, with over 50,000 singles in that Facebook group talking about dating. It's a beautiful thing. People are actually meeting there as well. I'm on Facebook. I'm just a regular page. I'm still on Facebook, Joseph Dixon. And then, of course, we got IG, IG page, Real Black Love. And then we got a Facebook page, Real Black Love as well. So download the app. You can go check out the success stories. I've been reading the comments the whole time, and someone said that, these dating apps are all hookup apps. Well, RBL, we have the not statistics. We have the I'm so tired. I'm sorry. We have, I'm tired. I've been going crazy for the last 3 or 4 days, but we have success stories. So go to RBLapp.com and check out the success stories. They're beautiful stories, real stories. I actually documented some myself. I drove down to a couple places and documented them. Engagement parties, all such things. So it's a beautiful movement. So come on by.
Yes. Fayuna, please share.
They can find me at thedatingtruth.com, and I also have a private Facebook group called The Flirt Lounge. So it's facebook.com/flirt lounge.
Excellent. And for those experts that had to drop off, Dominique Clark, you could connect with her at Iam_D Clark or DominiqueClark.com. Dominique is fire and everything that she does. My sis, love her. And Dr. Ish Major, you can find him at drishmajor.com. He's very easy to find. And for me, you can connect with me at the Jasmine Diaz. I'm a matchmaker expert. And thank you so much for tuning in. I am beyond ecstatic to have had this conversation. Hopefully we'll have a chance to have this talk again in the future because I feel like it's absolutely necessary. Thank you, experts. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will catch you next time. See you later, guys.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you.